Good luck.
So we are YouTube living, and finally we are on Clubhouse. So we'll see if anybody pops in there.
Gotta make my lips shiny.
See that? Nice.
There we go. That's better.
So we're gonna mute that. All right, cool. So check. All right, audio working, no reverberation. You ready to go?
Yeah, of course.
All right, cool.
Let's go.
Let's get it. All right. So are we recording yet? Yes, we are recording. That's always my biggest fear is not recording. Right? So, all right.
Great.
Yeah, here we go. So, all right, ready? Here we go. James is a person who does the podcast tweaking. So here we go, Hannah. Ready?
Okay.
So, hey everyone, Bryan Whittington here today with this episode of the Talent, Sales, and Scale Show. And we have a real treat with us today. And I hope I don't butcher your last name here, Hannah. Hannah Ajikawa, is that right?
You did well, Ajikawa. You did well. You did well.
Ajikawa. All right, perfect. Well, she comes to us off of an introduction yet again from my man Nick Capozzi, and she is the founder of Growth Mode Limited, and she is in a unique space, female, black woman, and IT, and really great content out there, and she's one of the reasons that I got out of sales training doing it the way that we used to, because she has amazing content for an incredibly low price, and we are insane not to take advantage of this. So check her out, right? So check her out. And today's topic is going to be on how in the world can we get insights on sales process, and why is sales process so overlooked and not built out properly. So heavy topic, but so important. So Hannah, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And Nick, my guy. So, I love Nick. So yeah, that's it really.
Got it. All right. So here's where I'd like to start off is, sales process, maybe not the sexiest topic in the world, but vitally important. So I guess the question is, why in the world should we listen to you? You're a sales trainer. Why should we listen to you about sales process?
It's funny, right? Because I don't like to give myself any labels, but people need labels to attach to things, right? Just to make it easier to understand. But so it's interesting. I've been in sales for 13 years. I came straight out of university, having studied criminology and social policy. I thought I was going to change the world in the public sector, and it didn't happen. So I jumped straight into sales, and I've had a lot of conversations, right? I've always been, I went through the ranks, right? So from a junior sales rep as an SDR or BDR, we used to actually call it business development executives 12 years ago, through the ranks to account management, senior, field sales, enterprise roles, etc., through to kind of management and mentoring of junior sales reps. Now, I've had fantastic years where, sales, all the luxuries, all the greatness from performance comes with it, and all the results. And then I've had some terrible times. But what I've done is I've never stopped learning and never stopped having conversations. So what that means is I'm in a position where I can take insights, not just from other people in the field, so from books, from resources, from videos, from blogs, from podcasts, and I can actually take my real experience, having worked for really big, global organizations and big sales organizations, to tiny ones where it's 4 people sitting around a table as a startup, trying to disrupt the way people are working through new technologies and really grinding. So what I've done is just really pulled together all of those things, synthesized it, used my superpowers, and come up with ways that people can actually create more systematic processes and methodologies to sell more, much more often.
Okay, so I love that. Superpowers. So let's talk a little bit about superpowers, and then how you've been able to synthesize this, hard word for me to say, because the challenge is this, and I don't know if you would agree with this or not, so let me throw this out there. One of the reasons that I'm guessing this is going to be a superpower for you is because there's no one thing that we need to do in order to create sales process, in order to take that superpower and take that non-transferable skill and give that to somebody else. To me, it's that complexity of deep thinking, figuring out our superpowers, those non-transferable skills that we do naturally, and then put it into a process that we can systemize for others to follow. So is that maybe a little bit about what you've figured out, or do I have that way wrong?
To be fair, it's pretty much how I try to approach things. There's no one right way. So there's lots of what I see is companies spend a lot of money on sales trainers or sales methodology, right? How to sell, what tactics you need to do within a sales engagement to get a buyer from A to B, whatever that be. It could be A to B inside a part of the process. It could be A to B being the beginning to the end. But where things start to fall down slightly is actually how that aligns to your process. So you've got these semi-linear steps, because you do go backwards and forwards and sideways in the sales process. And you, no matter how great or mediocre a salesperson might be, maybe in their aptitude and skill set, if you've got a decent process, a set of steps that somebody can follow, you can even stumble your way through a sales process, right? With somebody who's, got a compelling event, they're ready to buy, and get them to a place where you actually have a decent kind of contract value. But when you don't have much direction, what you're doing is you're kind of getting into a car, saying you need to get to X destination and thinking, you know what, I know how to drive. I'm just going to wing it and just follow roads. I'm just going to follow roads. And it's like, turn the sat nav on, get some real direction, understand what route it is. How about when you get to this stage in the process, if something isn't happening quite right, you know how Google starts to recalibrate where you are, just finding where you are. With that guidance, it's like, cool, I'm here, didn't really go to plan. Where else can I go now? So how do you build processes that actually help to navigate a salesperson to help them to assist a buyer through a process, even though it's going to be changing? So when the economy changes, when the situation changes, where you're no longer face to face, but you're remote, when technology evolves, when technology is not working, like what are all these right? Zoom's not working. What next? Where do you go from there? Have you enabled your team to have a different resource that they can use to still bring somebody for a process? So it's just about getting those foundational, pretty boring elements in. And I love boring. I absolutely love it, to get people to a stage where they can get more confident. And what I talk a lot about is being unconsciously competent, right? So you're in a process, and you kind of know what you're doing, you know where you are. So you've got to this stage, and it's not really going to plan. So you're like, I know what I need to do next. I can remember it because I do it so often. I follow the same route so often that it's now second nature. I'm not frozen out because somebody's being difficult with me on the phone. So where my superpower comes in is I've been really good at synthesizing all of these different scenarios. And I've learned more from where things go tragically wrong. I can look back at something from 4 years ago that didn't close and be like, yeah, I know what happened there.
Well,
I didn't get internal buy-in, or I didn't get, do you know what I mean? So yeah.
And that's the beauty about, if we put process in place, we can go back and deconstruct. We can autopsy that whole entire sales process, and we can improve and improve. So you laid out a number of different things there. So most people, they look at sales and they want it to be in a linear fashion, right? They want to go A to B to C to D, and it's not whatsoever. If we look at revenue operations, if we look at revenue generation in total, it is so dynamic that we can't one-off it. And that was my point that I was expecting you to say here, Hannah, is that it's, we look for tactics, or we look for technology, or we look for training, or fill in the silver bullet, but it's none of that, yet all of it that must come from process. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. Now, stupid question, difference between process and systems. I don't know if you thought about this before, but there's I would think a difference between process and systems. Any sense on that? When we're looking at this, how do we know if we're building out process versus systems to drive that process?
So so how I split that up is a process can be non-technical, right? So you've got it's something that's foundational. It sits right at the bottom of everything you're doing. I like to think of things kind of being stacked up into a pyramid. So you've got the process right at the bottom. The systems are what enable that process. So that's when you start to think about maybe the technical elements that might come into that, or maybe that's other areas of the business. Maybe some of your product enables part of the process. I don't know what that looks like, but for me, a system is something that is involving something more technical, that's actually helping to automate and drive and facilitate that process.
Yeah, and I would wholeheartedly agree with that, and I'm glad that you said that, because I don't know if you've seen this before in your experience of working with others, But what I've found is that people aim for the systems, right, to make their life easier, because we all want to make it easier. So they put these systems in place, whether technology, whether hiring people, whether you fill in the blank of what tool or tactic they're going to use, training. They put these in place, yet they don't have process. So it's a tool with a fool that ends up getting there much more quickly, and it's a bigger disaster than usual. So, right, have you seen that before at all?
Absolutely, all the time.
Okay.
I've seen it all the time. I've seen it with clients. I've seen it as a salesperson within organizations. Lots of tools. So there's a new tool called Slack. Let's get that. There's a new tool that can help with entering data into Salesforce. Let's get that. There's a new tool, and it's like, that's great. But at the bottom, it's like, but what's our sales process? What's our process for doing, even delivering what we're saying we're going to deliver to our customers? A lot of people don't even have that post-sales process, which is a massive area that still needs a lot of work, right? Which is, we know that the customer relationship breaks down during that onboarding process. We know that your relationship with your employees breaks down during that onboarding process. We know that partnerships break down if you don't onboard people, that post engagement, that post kind of contract signing element that we kind of overlook, right? So it's trying to work on that to make that better, to make sure that the long term, is much more successful.
And that's why I think this is so relevant, because you just laid out a couple of things. You tied this to hiring. You can tie this to just about everything, because I've really been studying this revenue operations, RevOps, right? Or if you call it revenue generation, because we can grow our revenue through, there's only 4 ways that we can really grow revenue if you think about it. We can do direct sales, channel sales, self-service, or we can do mergers and acquisitions. So those are really the 4 ways. And there's a myriad of different ways that we can implement those. But I might be missing some, but I really think there's only those 4. Am I missing anything off of that?
No, there's not. No, I can't think of anything outside of that.
Yeah, it's so simple, right? There's the 4 main things, but we make it so hard.
We do.
And then what you've said there is, if we lay out process, so much of the revenue generation, rev operations ties to marketing, ties to hiring. And that's why this is a talent, sales, and scales podcast, because all of those are so integrated. And it seems like maybe that's what you've figured out, is it's this dynamic complexity that we need to boil down to those simple 4, right? It's one of these 4 or one of these steps. So tell me a little bit more. You keep talking about your superpower. Can you identify or name, what is that superpower?
So my superpower is twofold. One, being human, approaching sales in the most human way possible.
Okay.
And on top of that is being able to take in a lot of information, a lot of different things, different ideas, perspectives, challenge my own thought pattern, put it through a little filter, and out the bottom comes out something that's actually pretty special, in my opinion. and in clients' opinions, I get feedback. But it's challenging the way we do things and we think about things, and it's just getting to the human element. So I put out some content yesterday, and as an example, and somebody's feedback was, this is what I'm talking about. Just doing the basics really well can even allow you to perform better. So sending out a meeting invite during a sales process and sending an agenda in there, that is groundbreaking for some. And it's like, why is that groundbreaking? It's pretty basic. If I called my friend right now and just said, can you meet me across the road in 10 minutes? What is the first thing they're going to say?
For what?
For what? What for? So they need to have this point where they need to balance out. Once you tell me what it's for, I can work out, you've called me out of the blue, or even if I've scheduled something in with you, is it more important than what I'm doing now based on the priorities that I have? Because I need to make sure that I make the right decision. But what I don't want to do is end up there across the road with my friend, and now you're in this situation where you're like, this was a waste of time. We could have dealt with this another way. Or if I knew what we were going to discuss and think about, I could have brought somebody else to do this. It's not even my responsibility.
Right.
So we just that really basic human approach to think about things as you are them, right? So I made a video on YouTube called "You Are Them, You Are the Prospect." So I gave an example of again, something that we go through every day. We've got a phone charger, and we wait. And we know that it's a bit broken at the end, right? The iPhone charger.
Right.
Always gets a bit thin, or the Android chargers, and you just kind of wait until it breaks. So you've got a situation where you've seen a problem, the charger's getting a bit loose. You're like, I could die really if I keep touching the end. So you learn how to put it in from the rubber bit and kind of force it with an inch away. And then one day you wake up, your phone's not charged. Now it's a problem. It's been a problem that's been building up for weeks because you know that it's a little bit shaky and tricky. But now it's a problem because it's broken. And now I can't do what I need to do. My phone's not charged. I don't know what meetings I have. I don't know I can't call people. It's the same with a prospect who's buying a solution. Like, just think about it. We're approaching them and they've said, yeah, I've got a bit of a problem, but it's no big deal right now.
Right.
Yes, we're going to ask the questions to try and uncover that. We're going to try and work out more about, okay, so you've said that this is an issue. Tell me more about this. How is that impacting that? Some people just don't know yet until the phone charger breaks and their phone's not charged in the morning. So we need to give people sometimes that time. Be a human in the sales process and just say to your boss, learn to be a human and challenge your boss and say, I'm not going to keep calling this guy or girl because it's not a big issue yet.
So Hannah,
guess what? Their charger's going to break soon, and I'm going to be there right in time.
I can't
because
hear you.
They're going to remember
you muted yourself. There you go.
Oh, I don't know how that happened. I didn't touch anything. That's weird.
Yeah, somehow you got muted there. So you're talking about the phone charging and you know, how do you do that? So if you can pick up where you were there before you went on mute.
So it's talking about being a human in the sales process. One of the examples I used is us as individuals. One problem we experience a lot is, and we've all gone through it, the charger that breaks. So you've got a charger, it's get weaker and weaker and weaker. You have to keep fiddling with it. And one day you wake up and your phone is not charged. So now it's a problem. So now you're going to go on Amazon or eBay and whatever you need to do to go and buy a charger. But that time in between it, you realizing that your charger is about to break and your charger breaking, it's not impacted you yet because it still kind of works. Your charger's still kind of charging your phone. You just have to give it a wiggle or whatever. And that's the same in a normal B2B context. You've got in touch with someone or they've seen something that has helped them to see, oh, I can do something better.
Correct.
But
now,
right now,
sorry,
yeah, I was going to say, so right now it's not an issue. It's not an issue for me yet. So I need to get to a place where this thing that you've shown me is better, or this challenge or whatever it is, I need it to make sense to me, or I need to be uncomfortable where something is broken and I need to fix it before I can take action. But for some reason, as salespeople, when we get into sales engagements, we forget that people are human and realize that they need to wait some time before it becomes an issue. And we can accelerate that through questioning and all those things, but things take time. To answer your question, the superpower is really about helping salespeople to address the challenges that companies and prospects are facing from a human perspective, because that's what's going to connect with people.
Okay, so I'm going to go tactical, and then we're going to work to tie this to process. Mm-hmm. And so whenever we're doing this from a tactical perspective, what you're discussing here is, all right, there's really three types of people in the world, right? Those who are open-minded and curious, those innovators, right? That they're always looking for a cutting way, that growth-mindedness. That's one side, and they're usually going to be open for a conversation. They might, after that conversation, say, hey, bandwidth, time, whatever, and be a legitimate, not going to buy it. But those people are typically going to engage with you. The other side of that is what you pointed out, is those that have been wiggling that for so long and now, this thing doesn't work anymore. And so now it's, I need to do something. They're in enough pain to take action. And unfortunately, I think where the majority of people are is in that miserable middle of comfort, right? I'm in my comfort zone. So the energy to change is going to take more than doing anything else. So I'm going to keep with status quo. And so really my sense is, can we build, to tie this back to the topic of process, can we build a process to engage only those two of growth-minded and pain now, and then nurture those in the middle, that uncomfortable middle, until they get to the point where, this doesn't work anymore, I need help, right? So being top of mind, being there for whenever they're ready. So is that kind of tying tactics and process together in the way that you see it, or do I have that off?
No. It's a really good question. And it all depends on what your objectives are, right? So your sales process has to align with your company objectives. It needs to align with what you're trying to get to. So when I speak with startups or companies that have kind of hit that Series A point, it's like, okay, so you're no longer just looking for traction. You don't just want to prove product market fit. Now you're really driving, you need revenue. So that process is going to look different to one that's just like, I just need people on it. So if you just need people on it, that's going to be a case of speed sometimes, right? So what you're going to want to say is, actually, for me, I'm going to need that people that are have a growth mindset, and people that are having the problem right now. So I'm going to build qualification that gets rid of that middle ground. I don't have the time or the capacity to nurture people and get them to feel uncomfortable. I need people that are crying right now and people that are really excited by change and new things. So you build a process around that. You get your qualification methodology in place, give it to your sales reps and say, we are only talking to these kind of people, and this is how you identify them. Anybody else, that is another, either you don't have the capacity right now, so you put them to the side, or they go into some kind of nurture campaign where marketing, enablement, all of those things come into it. But you need to look at, what are you looking at today? Where are you trying to get to? If you know that you've got an enterprise team and they've got a really huge target, you know that it's going to take 18 months to close somebody. I'm hoping your pre-work was done the year before, right? Because they ain't closing anything this year. And don't go sacking them at the end of the year because they haven't closed anything, because the pre-work wasn't done. You didn't build a sales process that said, let me take people from completely unaware of what else is happening, take them on a journey of an art of impossible, where they can see what all the possibilities are for 6 months of just nurturing engagement, conversations, discovery sessions, value, where you then bring them to a place when, do you know what we're going to do for the next 9 months? We're going to work collaboratively towards getting you to that place of utopia. Build your process to align with the markets you're going after, the type of personas you're going after, because it's going to differ. You can't have one process. It's not one process fits all. Sorry.
Yeah. So really then what you're saying is there's one overarching process and then sub processes within there. So there might be the process of discovery, but that process of discovery falls within your overarching sales process. And that overarching sales process, if I'm understanding what you're suggesting here, might align with the product or service offering. Because if I have a short cycle, easy to buy service offering there, it might be one process, versus if I have a larger, more enterprise, complex, 5-10 people within that buying process, then I need another one, and there's going to be sub processes within there. Am I picking that up right?
And that's exactly the case. And there's going to be some companies that just have prerequisites where, if somebody, for instance, doesn't have Salesforce, we can't work with them. How do you coach and train your reps to be comfortable enough with you incentivizing behaviors that actually get the results you need? So I don't just want you to have 100 conversations. I want you to have I want you to have 25 conversations with people that have Salesforce. Right. Don't waste your time, right? Because you could just spend 75% of your time on nonsense. So incentive, there's so many things and parts and pieces that fall into this that often get overlooked, right? And it's unfortunate, because one of the things I'm extremely passionate about is giving salespeople the opportunity to have the best outcomes of a sales career. Because you don't get into sales just for fun. Because
that's a lot easier way to make money, right?
Yeah, there's some easier ways to make money. So it's like I'm doing sales. For some companies, they pay really well. For others, they don't. But the incentive is those luxury. You've got these goals that sit outside of sales. You want to get a house before your friends. You want to get your car. You want all these things, right? You want to travel. So you do that so you can get access. You can accelerate your career and get more money. So how do we build these processes, these systems, these methods to enable more salespeople to get that? And that's kind of where my head is as well.
So let's hit this in two ways then. Let's answer the question first of, why do we believe, now that we've discussed why do we do these things and the importance of it, why do you believe that people overlook this step or don't even think of it, or if they do think of it, they don't do it effectively? That might be too complex of a question, so I apologize. So do your best with that one.
No, I was going to say, tell me what step you're specifically talking about.
Building out overarching. So building out the process. So, and I would, let's give people the benefit of the doubt. I'm a brand new founder starting this thing up. I'm on survival mode, right? I'm just trying to get things going. Like, I need money. I need somebody. I'm calling people for product market fit. Let's talk to that person. Mm-hmm. Why should I carve time out of my day whenever I'm trying to build this product to take to market? Why should I think of sales process? Why would that be important to me?
The biggest thing is you want to create something that is repeatable, something that you can measure and see where it's going wrong and right, and something that you can actually scale. So what the conversation that you're going to be having at those very early stages with the investment that you're seeking is, okay, so show me, you've done this little bit, show me how you get it to here.
Right.
I'm going to pump money in here. So I need to know what you're doing and how, if I pump 1 million in here, how does that get me 10 million? Like, so if you can only say, yeah, we got out and we spoke to some people and I got some contracts in my network, that's great. But I want to know the repeatable stuff, not the stuff where you got lucky, right? Because you've got a friend that works at Microsoft or somebody that works at HP. Those big brands are great for social proof with your actual ideal customers. Because if you've got those small mid-market companies, they aspire to be like HP and Microsoft and SAP and Oracle. But I need you to be able to repeatedly sell to these mid-market companies or whatever you're targeting, day in, day out. So I need to understand that process. I need to know how much it's costing you to acquire that company, that customer, because I need to know when my return's coming. I need to know how we can measure lifetime value. I need to know all of the tactics, the things you're doing that we can measure, so I know what my formula looks like.
Well, so let's and so what you laid out there is so critical, and I'm begging you, founders that are listening to this, and even non-founders, pick this up, because really what you said is, going back to the beginning of this conversation, we learn so often by the stupidity that we do, all right? And I'm the biggest stupid one out there. I've done so many foolish things, and it's right, and it's only foolish whenever we repeat the same thing, right? So we do these stupid things because we don't know any better. So what you just said there is, okay, don't avoid the foolish mistakes that you're going to make, right? Use wisdom as opposed to foolishness, because if you think through it in process, okay, when I get to this point, what do I do? When I get to this point, what do I do? Most of you that are these founders, especially software, you're likely an engineer anyway, and you have that mindset. So you're wanting to reverse engineer that and avoid those roadblocks and challenges before you hit them, because you know which ones are going to come up whenever you think this through. So you build out that process to avoid those. Then what else you just told me is that if we do those things right, now I can get money. I can increase the investment, the time to capital, so I can continue to grow. And if I do those two things, and because I am building this process out, tweaking it as we go along, that design thinking, constant innovation and improvement, then I can scale this thing, because here's what we know. Growth sucks cash, and I can grow myself out of business if I keep screwing stuff up. So this process is going to allow me longevity and to win. So that's a long round way of asking. Is that kind of what you said? Did I pick up what you're suggesting?
Yeah, exactly that. And to wrap it all up, it's just, you want consistency. You don't want to be the one hit wonder, right? You don't want to make that superstar hit tune and then nobody's heard of you again. So you want to make sure that you can consistently create revenue chains through your business. And it's not just something where, you've got that one killer enterprise client, and that's great, but it's not a comfortable place when they are 20% of your revenue after a year. Yeah. It's not very comfortable, because you know what? They're also really sophisticated buyers, and they're going to do some assessment on your finances, and they're going to be like, we're 20% of your revenue. Yeah, we need a discount. That's too risky for us.
Yeah.
So you start to get into all these other things. So let's nail out these processes. In those early days, let's build a process that meets those kind of incremental goals. So what's that first goal? Let's build a process to hit that. Okay, let's iterate. We've hit that goal. What do we need to do next? Are we looking at revenue? Are we looking at customer traction? Are we looking at partnerships? What process is going to facilitate that? And when you've got those processes in place, who do we need to enable that? Do we need a senior salesperson? Do we need a VP of sales? Do we need a hungry kid that's going to just get on the phones and be scrappy and just get the volume of things going? Are we going to let the product sell itself with a product-led approach, right? Where we actually need more engineering resource to build out things so the product can sell itself. Do we need a growth hacker? Like, without getting that basic process in place, you're going to spend money that you do not need to spend. And that's a sad part, as you said. Growth is going to eat that money that you have, particularly.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying here, Hannah. So again, I hope that you're picking this up, because the beauty about what Hannah's saying is, read between the lines. The depth of that answer is huge, because what we're assuming then is we know not only product market fit, not only which of those four channels is it going to be direct, indirect, or channel, self-service, or M&A. Not only are we worrying about those things, but is it a long sales cycle, short sales cycle? Do I have processes in place so well that I can take a junior salesperson and train them because I have such a systematic, or excuse me, a processed approach to this that I can onboard, train, get from first day, hey, new hire orientation to profitability, that person producing ROI as opposed to a line item of expense, right? That salary is actually making me money, right? Which is so often missed in salespeople, because even bad salespeople interview well. So having all of that in there can adjust the way I go to market and the way I hire. So that's why if we get this process down, we can do so much better, and that dictates who we hire, how long we ramp them up, what's the sales cycle time, do we have to adjust our terms for cash for cash cycle time so we're not running out of money before they actually pay, because we have AP and AR issues and all this stuff. I mean, all of this is vitally integrated, so this linear approach that most of us take doesn't work. We need that dynamic approach. So good. What else on this? So we go ahead, sorry.
So I was going to say, so you just asked what else on this, right? And one thing you do see is some companies do go straight for process, and it makes me happy, but it's this very kind of wishy-washy thing. So it's like, okay, so what we do is, we have a first call, and then we do a demo, and then we send a proposal, and then we go to close. They've got some kind of structure, but I'm like, that's just generic. That's right. Like, this is how I get in my car and start my engine. It's always going to be that. But what they forget to do is look at the nuances that exist within that. So that first call, what does it look like? What makes you bring it to a demo? Because not every first call should be a demo, and it certainly shouldn't always be on the customer. Some people just like to chat. Like, they're not busy. They're like, oh, I'd love to see your product. Is that person likely to buy anything? How do you find that out very early on, right? How do you ask questions and qualify? So you're like, my reps that are bringing forward calls, they've got a fantastic hit rate, but for some reason after the demo, everybody disappears. Yeah, because it's the wrong people.
Yeah, or wait a second, you're going to really make some people angry. You're telling me that I shouldn't go right to demo?
Yeah, exactly, right?
So let's talk about that first initial stage. So let's talk about some suggested processes. So let's go high level, overarching. I think that you just laid that out. What's your suggested overarching process? Now, please don't take this as gospel, right? This is going to be overarching, and you're going to have to tweak it to yours. But at least you have a starting point. So, what's a good overarching process, would you say, Hannah?
So for me, I always talk about kind of 8 or 9 steps. And this is just the things that happen anyway, right? So these are the things you should be thinking about when building out an end-to-end process. So that research piece. So I always talk about the end-to-end process from when somebody knows who you are, from either inbound or outbound activity. So you've got to that place where you know that you're about to speak to them, right? So you've it's your ideal customer profile. It's either come inbound or outbound work. Great. So you've done, now you're doing some research. You get your research done. So have that as a thing that people are doing. And as a sales leader or a CEO, if you don't have a sales leader, let's engage with our sales team to say, what research, what are we finding out about this prospect? What have we found out about their business, their market? How is the macro environment affecting them at a micro level in their role, not just in the company? Because in their role, it may not matter. Yeah. Then we want to get to those initial calls, right? And in those initial calls, you want to have really clear qualification criteria. Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to be, I recommend things like that band, and for some companies, a high level strong man thing might be great. Could be, there's all these qualification criteria. Some people just develop their own. Essentially, you want to know, am I speaking to the right person? If I'm not, do they know who the right person is? Do they have any importance? Do they have, or are they thinking about money? Can they make decisions? Have they got something happening right now? And also, where's this come from? Why are we on the phone? What is it? A business strategic thing that's happening, or is it just somebody in a team has brought this thing, this issue, challenge, or opportunity to the forefront? Right. We want to get an idea about that, because the source of a discussion is going to be important, right? Oh, my boss told me to call you. Okay, decision maker already knows. So we don't have to worry too much about, I need to speak to your boss. I need to speak to your boss. Let's just gather information. So all those things are really important. From here, what we usually do is start to develop that discovery session. Now, it really depends on the structure of your offering, the customers you're working with, the different markets you're in, on what that discovery process might look like, because you might have 3 discovery sessions, and that is okay. You might have one, it's usually just this 15-minute call because you've got a transactional sale where your deal closes within a week or 2. Those were the days. But I always say one of the key things to do at this stage around the first initial calls is really say, find out where people are. And you might have seen me, I always talk about scales, right? I just released the daily sales tip with Scott Ingram. And it's, where are you on a scale of 1 to 10 in trying to uncover what's going on with this issue, this challenge opportunity? Because that will reveal so much. Because somebody might say, you know, number 1 is just getting started, had a team meeting. Somebody said, this is interesting. Number 10 is we're speaking to vendors, we're shortlisting. So where are you there? Because if someone says I'm at number 2, it's like, oh, okay, they're really getting started. I can't be going into some deep dive discovery. I need to really educate them and tell them about this thing and what this issue looks like, right? So I need to take them through that process. Also, we've got this thing and this stat, and you'll know it. Everybody knows it. The buyers are 70% of the journey. They're already 70% of the way in their research when they come to you. They've done all their research online. They don't need anything. Just give them the price when they come to you, because you know, if they've come inbound, they've done lots of research, they've been on G2, they've been on all these platforms. Now they're with you. Just tell them what they need to hear. We make a mistake here by assuming that to be fact, because one of the things we should really be doing when somebody is coming inbound is finding out what they know. This isn't, oh, tell me what research you've done. It's not that. It's, so you know in your head that they've been doing some digging. So we want to understand and confirm what they know at that really early stage. And it's so important to get all of this up front, because the worst thing you can do is invite someone to a discovery meeting, Bryan, where you're telling them things they already know. Oh my God, don't waste an hour with me telling me what I already know. 1, you're going to lose credibility with me because I know this. So why didn't you find out what I know already? Why didn't you find this out? So ask the right questions to uncover that. Do different types of discoveries. One that's telling somebody about all the fantastic things that could happen in Utopia. This is how amazing things could be. The other one is, you seem to have a really good grip on your problem. So I really want to spend time understanding what you've done so far, your situation, what you've uncovered, what you've quantified, what the issues are, all of these things. That's your discovery. After discovery, you want to start going to a part where you, the process. So you spoke about process. So we've gone research, first calls, discovery. Now we're coming out of discovery, all the great things, we're seeing all the great signs. Now we want to look at decision makers. Where are those decision makers? Who are they? And how do we manage them? From decision makers, we want to look at proposals. And that should be a part of your process. A proposal is not the end of a sales process. And this is where I see so many people like, send it out, hope and pray, hallelujah.
Hey, let me just email it to you.
No, I'm going to emailing it to you. Oh no, I'm going to present this proposal to you. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to present the proposal to you, and we're going to have a date in the diary to talk about what happens, what the proposal looks like, get your feedback, do it in real time. We're going to go through the document together on screen or in person one day when we're allowed to meet people. From proposal, you want to look internally at your team and start to say, is this really a pipeline opportunity? And I always say that this should be a real thing as part of your process. The pipeline and a discussion with your business, particularly when you're a small business. Do we even want this piece of business? Now that we know everything, do we want this business? What does it mean to us? Because you need internal buy-in. And then you need to go to your customer and say, listen, right now at this stage, I'm assuming you've got in your head that you're going to spend money with us on something, because they should be making a decision. It shouldn't really get this far in a process where they're like, actually, yeah, we're not going to do anything. That should be in the minimal situations. They should be proactively looking at solving something at this stage. Then we're going to look at things like, okay, now that they've said they want to solve it, what's the mutual engagement plan? In a small sales cycle, that could just be a 15-minute call. This is what we're going to do in the next 3 hours to get this deal closed. Mm-hmm. And an enterprise one, it's a whole document with stakeholders, decisions that need to be done, actions, timetables, timelines, Gantt charts, all these things, right? And a big stakeholder map. Then you want to go into looking at negotiation. So what are we negotiating once you've got this plan? What are the different things that we can negotiate that are non-monetary and are monetary? Then we want to maximize the close. So closing is easy. closings, I mean, you have customers by this stage that say, can you send me the contract? Yeah, I'm in the office.
And
Let me
that's
start.
if you're doing this right. What Hannah just said
Precisely.
right here is because you've co-created the solution throughout, and closing is an event. It's just understood. And
Yeah,
your
just
new close now is not, hey, would you like to buy today? It's what should we do? So keep going. I love it.
yeah. What should we do? How should we do it? So you're at this place where you're ready to close and close the contract. We want to think about and throughout the process, you should be engaging your CSMs. I always say this, guys, egos out. We're talking about getting a customer to hit their intended outcomes, and your intended outcome is some commission. That's it. I want some commission out of this, or this 9-month sales cycle.
Yeah.
I need to get something. So what do? You build your team. You build your team, you build your sports team, whatever analogy you want to use. Because if there's a CSM that gets on well with your champion, you just need to be present and make sure you're coaching them and speaking. I don't know why we get so like, I need to be the person that closes this. You are. Do you know why? Because you're orchestrating everything. You're orchestrating everything. You don't see a coach running on the field in the middle of a football match. Oh, I need to shoot this goal. They're celebrating and they can feel how great they've done because they've coached people to do the right things more often, right? So we're at a close. We want to make sure we are maximizing the lifetime value. We want to make sure we're making finances job easy and legal at those stages. We want to make sure all those kind of infosec stuff, we would have addressed that during that mutual engagement plan because
Correct.
we would have been doing that. But at the end, we want to make sure that there's this really nice handover process to the CSM team. Everybody's clear on what's going on. Everybody knows the problems we're solving. Everybody knows the difficulties, the highs and lows we've had throughout that sales process. Your sales process should have those key components. It doesn't matter if it happens in 1 week or 1 year. But if you're not having those key components with entry and exit criteria, and then a methodology that sits in there. So how do I run a discovery? I was mentioning there's various different types. How do I qualify? There's different types. How do I build an engagement plan? Do I need a big hefty one or just a quick one? Is it just a call? How do I know it's pipeline? Because what criteria do you have internally and externally from the customer? Know what actions the customers are taking, know what actions you're taking, do it more often, execute better, everybody's happy. The end, Brian. That was
See
like
how
a 10
easy that was? Oh my gosh, that's super simple. All right, everyone, you got it.
Right,
so yeah, let's break this down here a little bit. So high level, right? So let's summarize what Hannah just brought out here. One, we're gonna create a process for messaging, right? Messaging positioning. From that messaging positioning, we're gonna come up with a process for identification, personas, job functions, everything that goes along with that identification of the ideal customer profile. Then from that ideal customer profile, we're going to get into lead generation. What's the process for lead generation? Is it going to be inbound, outbound, a both and then from there, we're going to identify, now be careful here, this is qualification criteria. Now you can move that up into the identification, but it's really qualification criteria as part of that lead generation, who we're going to go after. Then if they match that qualification criteria, we go to the next part of the process, which is discovery, right? So discovery is going to look a little bit different depending on which service offering they're looking at, depending on how they came in, right? Because if they come in from an inbound lead, if they come in from an introduction, if they come in from a cold outreach, there's going to be slightly different ways of doing discovery here. So not all discovery is the same. Now, I've kind of combined this middle part here. And you can do sales methodology, whether it's Sandler, Challenger, Medic, Bant, whatever, right? So it's pursuit, disqualification, and solution development, right? All within that middle. That's really what you're doing, is that co-creation of solution development, which is going to be, to Hannah's point, that at the end, what do? Well, we just put into place the solution that we created. Go ahead.
But I'll challenge you there, because it's great that we have that kind of pursuit overview that and solutioning around that space. But what I see is people group things up too much because they don't want too many steps. And it's like it's a psychological thing. It's not about having lots of steps. It's about making sure that your salespeople can execute on the specific thing. So execute the discovery, which is, of course, understanding, can we work with them? That's what you're doing. Set an objective. Can we work with these people? Which means, do they have a problem we can solve? Are they in a position to work with us? Can we work with them? Do we even want them? And then you want to split that out, because if you're trying to identify who are the decision makers and what's their problems and what's the pain and what's the impact and their future state, and also how we're going to align and build out a mutual plan. And it's a lot to do in one space. So you want to break it down so you can say, tick, move forward, deal velocity, tick, move forward, deal moving forward, advance. If we just hone it all up and say, let's bucket up four steps into one, it starts to become a bit overwhelming for a salesperson, and things start to get a bit like my gut feeling and too discretionary because we can't be prescriptive enough.
So wholeheartedly agree, and that wasn't the point that I was trying to make. So I'm glad that you clarified that. So
Oh no, that's fine.
no, to piggyback off of what Hannah's saying here. So if you, that's why I said you can use Medic. So if you use Medic, think of checklist manifesto that I'm checking this thing off as I'm going through. But you have to have, whether we use spin methodology or questioning strategy or challenging strategy in that initial, is there business case? What's the emotional compelling reason why to take action? Then you get into budget. Are you ready, willing, and able to make any and all investments? So maybe you have an investment step, and it's more than just money. It's, are you willing to pay your political capital to champion this? Because if they're not, you're dead, right? Or are you willing to invest the time? And that goes in with the training, that goes in with change management, that goes in with the pushback of having to go through all of this. So that's really the investment step. And then, like you said, the discovery process. How do you go about this? Timeline, all involved, roadblocks, the champions, the white knights, black knights, whatever terminology you want to use it. That's what I'm all couching into that pursuit, a drive to disqualification, because if it's a no, I want to know, right? If it's a no, I want a KNOW, I want to know. And then that all co-develops. So now their fingerprints are all over this thing. It is a co-developed solution that they are completely bought into. So that's kind of what I couched in there, but I agree that you'll want to have specific steps within there of the process or sub-processes to that piece so you can follow along in that checklist manifesto or stage exit criteria, I think is what you said.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. That entry and exit. And the people are getting much better at that. And like much better at that. But no, continue. I know you're summarizing the rest.
Yeah, I'm not doing a really good job summarizing.
No, you are.
So we get that solution development, and then what I like to you put here is from that solution development, then we come back, do solution presentation. And at the end of that, with everybody involved, they should go, yep, that's it. When do we start? And then from that solution development, and you made a key point here, what's that handoff? Because so often the handoff from sales to delivery or sales to implementation is a disaster, and things get dropped. And most of the time what we're doing in these days and age is that customer success, we make our revenue through retention. And if there's a rocky handoff, you can make it up, but more and more people are moving to pay as you go or quicker outs. And if I can't tie you down to a 2-3 year contract or even a year engagement, it's really challenging to make up for that missed opportunity in the handoff. And then from there, so many people miss this, and so I want to really highlight what you put out there, because I bet a lot of people missed it, is that strategic account management. You've done so much hard work, 9 months on the 9 months to 18 months on these strategic or on these enterprise sales where people are quitting, your champion leaves, and you're like, right? So all of this stuff is happening. And then, so we finally land it, and then we don't do the strategic account management of cross-selling and upselling. Now that they're on board, how can we find additional ways to help them? So that strategic account management step of the process. So those are all the steps. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If we count, there's a few, 9, 10, 11, 12.
That is one.
Yeah.
You got it for you.
Yeah, I see 12 throughout there, but that goes from the second I start messaging all the way to cross-sell, upsell. So that's the entire life cycle. Yep.
And that's it. But those are, and what I say is that's just it. That is the standard kind of things that you do. So your process is just reflecting the things that happen anyway, right? In a sales engagement, and it has to reflect that. But where you come into it as an organization is enabling your salespeople to execute that process well, very often. So you want them to be able to do it in a way where they just know what comes next. They're so familiar with it, and they do it often. But when you just say, we're going to have a phone call, discovery, proposal, there's all these little bits that you're really missing out on. So what type of discovery? The first call, what does that look like? Is it going to be face to face? Is it just on the phone? Is it a Zoom call? you know, is it an email exchange? I don't know. Like, can that still qualify it as a call or whatever your metrics are? And then incentivizing the right behaviors. You want to drive, this kind of product, incentivize it, there's so many elements that come into it. Then compensation plans that reflect this, right? I'm not going to do something or sell something that doesn't pay me, unfortunately. Or you might have people that care so much about the customer that they're misaligned with that compensation, because they're like, it's all about the customer, so it doesn't matter if I'm not going to get paid for it. The customer needs it. And then your manager's shouting at you because, like, why are you selling stuff that I don't get recognized for? There's all these weird things. So what do you care about as an organization? Are you really customer driven? If you are, then those situations are going to come up. Somebody's going to come to a particular team, ask for a particular solution. You haven't compensated or built a compensation plan for your sales team around that particular thing. So they're not even going to get paid for it. So what, do we lose the customer because the salesperson? So there's a lot of layers to this when it gets into the larger organizations. But for the small companies, create a system, test it, iterate it, get some data, modify it where you're seeing the bottlenecks. Where are the things that aren't really working? Change it. Okay, let's go through the system again. But you can't expect things to just happen by winging it. It's too difficult.
Now, what do you say to the person that says, you're overcomplicating it?
Yeah.
Just go out and sell, right? Because I absolutely guarantee you there's going to be people that say, you know what, just go out and sell it, would you? What do you say to that person?
The biggest issue there is we make assumptions about how somebody's going to go about doing something. They've come in from another organization, you've hired your senior sales rep, and you're like, just go out and sell, do what you told me you're going to do in your interview.
Right.
But what happens there is you don't really know what they're doing. So when you get so they might do really well. So you're like, they've hit 1 million, let me get somebody else in. And that second person closes nothing in 8 months.
That never happens.
Like, it happens. So it's just like, what did they do well? How do you systemize, right, what they've been doing, or systematize? People, you say that as well. How do you systematize what they're doing? So you can say, all right, let's just follow. You've had some success. I want to put a process into, because you won't always have a process from day dot. You've got to remember that. You do have to do some stuff to get some little granular bits of data, use the outside external data, bring that in and be like, okay, this looks about right. And put some steps in place. And then be like, so that your sales reps can say, you know what, when we do discovery, that we're missing something. And they say, okay, let's deep dive into that. Where are we finding, what are we missing out on? Get some feedback. But it's not a case of overcomplicating it. So as I said, those 12 steps or whatever they are can happen in a day if that's what you're selling. If you're selling pens, right, and you're just speaking to a procurement person, they're going to go through that process. Initial call, understanding their pain, what do they need, what's possible, where they're trying to get to, here's a proposal, what are we negotiating on, who's involved in that decision-making process, what do we need to get done today, the mutual plan, and then you're closing it. It's just making sure that you have a method and a tactic and all of those steps, and then measuring it so you can keep improving it.
And that's the key, measuring it so you can benchmark it and tweak to the ratios, right? Because it's those small little wins, especially earlier in the top of the funnel. If I can tweak those top of the funnel metrics, like outreach to connection to first time meeting, if I can increase those by a half, 1%, 2%, what that does to my bottom line is massive. So it's so critically important. So, oh my gosh, Hannah, I could talk here all day. We're running out of time. So let's go to this. I mean, you've given us so much information. I can't thank you enough for that. What's maybe one thing, and thank you, what's maybe one thing, a challenge that you've faced or you've seen your people face that, have left scars, have left a mark that we can learn from you so we can avoid that?
Oh, good question. You should have prepped me for this one, Bryan. Let me think. So I would say probably the biggest scars is not getting internal buying and thinking that you could probably still run with an opportunity when your business is just not in it. Yeah. Like it could be a fantastic opportunity. You as a salesperson feel personally that you have, or even in a small organization, you feel like, this is right. This is a good opportunity. It hits all of our qualification criteria. Remember what I said in that sales process, a key part of it with that kind of, once you've done a discovery, is getting your business to agree that we want to invest in this. If your business isn't going to invest in it, I'm telling you, it's going to be so hard to close anything, because you're, unfortunately, for whatever reasons above your pay grade, this is not an opportunity, a business, a pursuit that they want. So when you are in a situation, when you're as a salesperson, no matter what part of your career, if you are putting forward opportunities and the business are not giving you the room to maneuver it and actually get it done, I know it's frustrating, but just step away. Yeah. Because you will waste months. And I have done that myself, trying to pursue something because I know it's great. Yep. And some people have supported me, like different departments and, the pre-sales and stuff. But really and truly, my immediate people that I needed support from were like, we don't want you to spend time on this. So we're just going to make it really hard for you to do it without them telling you stop, right? They won't just tell you stop. So just that's kind of the biggest war story. Make sure you've got buy-in, not just from your client, but also from your business.
Yeah, so funny. We call it smoking hopium, right? We're addicted to hopium. So I wholeheartedly agree. So, hey, are you hard stop at the bottom of the hour here, or do you have a couple of extra?
No, I think I've got some. I say that. Let me quickly check. I think I've got some extra minutes. Let's quickly check on my 25 diaries that I've got lined up. I do, yeah. I've got
all right, perfect. I'll crank through this, and we have a couple of people that are listening on Clubhouse, so we can, if you're open to it, we can ask them to ask any questions that they might have whenever we're finished up recording here, because we need to make sure that they're comfortable with that. So we'll shut off the recording. So all right, so any hacks for us from a talent, a hiring perspective, because everything that you talked about goes to a hiring perspective, or a selling perspective, which you gave us all kinds, or even scaling the business. One talent, sales, or scale hack for us.
I'd say for talent, and people say this a lot, but you really do need to find people that are curious. Those people that are in those sales interviews, and they ask that question where you're like, I haven't heard that before. This is interesting. This is a good way to think about it. Yeah. And because you know that they generally are not just going online and thinking, what's the 10 sales questions you ask in an interview? They're really thinking. They're challenging you. They're asking you questions about, what did you guys do last year that you're not doing this year? They're asking questions about how many deals did you lose last year? Like, sales managers like, whoa, okay. Because it's usually, what does success look like? What's the best salesperson look like? Let's talk about some negative stuff, because I want to see if I can help in those ways, because that's what can I do to help you avoid that, right? So you want to look for that curious individual.
And I really like that, because knowledge is ubiquitous out there. It used to be in the old days that to sell, you had all the knowledge, and that's why they needed the salesperson. Not so much anymore. Now it seems to be that the salesperson of the future needs to have that skeptical curiosity, so we don't suck in that hopium, that problem-solving ability, which goes into what you just laid out, that curiosity to ask those questions. So, oh man, that's a whole nother podcast right there. So I love it. Now, any resources that you might recommend, books, podcasts, guides, other than going to your site and sign up for your group? What other books, podcasts, guides might you suggest?
Well, I definitely say, guys, go and subscribe to my YouTube. I get questions that I've answered already on the YouTube, so please check it out. It's about taking a human approach to the sales process. So everything that I post outside of my vlog is just giving some hints and tips. There's a new book that's just come out from somebody that I work with at Sisters in Sales called What's in the Cards. Without a doubt, the best piece of text I've read in the last 6 months when it comes to remote selling, right? That's where we are right now. Let's read stuff that is relevant to us right now, because you can get lost in a plethora of information where you're like, what do I do? This is literally like, this is how you should approach discovery calls now that we're doing it remote. This is how you should help build connections. And these are really important skills. But they say soft skills are now hard skills, right? Particularly because we're in a different environment. So that book, What's in the Cards, it's on Amazon by Sherilyn Castleman. Really experienced sales individual from pharma sales and technology sales over the last 25 years, sorry.
Cool. I haven't heard of that. That's an awesome one. Go ahead.
Yeah. And to be fair, with the podcast, there's so many. So what I'd encourage you to do is listen to non-sales podcasts. Widen your brain. Stop speaking to salespeople. Go on Clubhouse and go into the mindset room. Go into how to problem solve. Go into those things that are adjacent to the skill set that you need to do really well in your role. And that if I think back to university, that's one of the key things. I said to my lecturer, what do I do to get a first? And I'm like, don't stay inside your sector. So I read a lot of medical books. That was painful, but right? So how do I create my dissertation around non-criminology criminology and crime related theories. That's how you get the results, guys. Go outside of where you are, build your learning and bring it to the table. Be insightful. With regards to scaling, I'd say don't. I love that someone said startups exist to make money, not to raise money.
Right.
But
Crazy
unfortunately,
idea.
this weird thing that's happening at the moment. So when it comes, focus on making money, right? When you get that initial traction, make money. That's what you want to do. I appreciate that this environment where we want to all get a unicorn status, but imagine just making money and being a technology company that's around for 100 years.
Yeah,
That would be a
crazy
good
idea.
aim.
Yeah,
That would
right.
be that would be a crazy idea.
Wait,
I'd
there's a
love to
small
see
little
that
company
mindset.
called IBM, right? I think that does.
And there you go, right?
All right, and then how about future trends? What do we need to watch for? What are you looking for? Kind of, this is coming on the horizon, and kind of prepping for.
I'm looking to see where things like Clubhouse go. I'm looking to see where audio goes next. It's huge. It's been huge for the last few years. And I wouldn't say that I've paid enough attention to some of the things and the advancements, right? But now with Clubhouse and having access to so much information readily, I'm like, okay, so what does audio mean for sales? What does AI mean for sales? There's lots of platforms now that's pushing information to us. How do we make ourselves if a buyer is buying themselves into the products and basically selling themselves throughout the process, what do we do and what's our purpose? And some reading that I've been doing a lot of is by Gartner, and I'm going to release some content on it next week, so stay tuned. And they're talking about sense selling, right? So making sense of information to help a buyer make an informed and conscious decision. So how do we change from just being someone that sells at somebody to helping somebody absorb all the content that's available before they even speak to us? And when they come to us, make sense of it so that they choose us as the right partner moving forward. So there's all these different things that are happening, but we need to make ourselves indispensable, because right now there's a lot of companies that are just like, do we really need them?
Yeah, right. But and that goes back to our conversation a little bit earlier, is having that curiosity, being able to ask those questions, because we're really moving into a project management Sherpa type. They're the hero, we're the guide, and that's kind of what I see sales moving into. So I love it. And
You said my favorite word, project management. We're going to have more discussions about that on Clubhouse as well.
nice.
Big like that. Do we need to develop those skills as salespeople? That's what we should be focused on.
100%, because if this is process, we put systems to it. It's project management, right?
End of, right?
Say again. I'm sorry.
I'm saying end of. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So it's project management with human relationship skills that I know how to communicate and ask good questions. I mean, it's really that it. So, all right, cool. Yeah. So let's lay it out there. Hannah, you're awesome. So glad that Nick introduced us. So who should reach out to you? How should they do it? And why should people reach out to you, Hannah?
Guys, so you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Follow me on Clubhouse. I am Hannah Ajikawa, to make things really easy on all platforms. Reach out to me if you are at a point where you want to create a process that is going to enable you to do more sales more often. And how do you recognize that? Is it at a point where you're like, we're not making enough sales? Yeah, right. Our salespeople are not producing enough consistent results. We have underperformers. We have overperformers, but we don't know how to replicate that. So how do we go from having the top performers, bottom performers, to having a lot of just really good that are getting that 70 to 110% quota all the time?
Got it. Well, you can tell from this conversation, Hannah kind of knows what she's talking about. So definitely reach out to her. Last name is spelled Ajikaow. So look her up.
AWO.
Did I misspeak? AWO. I'm looking at right here as my dyslexia coming through. Jeez,
that's all right. Don't worry.
All right. So we'll have this in the show notes to reach out to her. We'll be putting some content out here to build this up. I will start following Hannah on your YouTube. I didn't even realize that was a channel that you had. So I am on it. Super excited. Thanks so very much. Listen, please, please, please don't take this information and go, oh, that was interesting. Do something about it. Put it to application and get after it. On behalf of the Talent, Sales, and Scale Show, Hannah, thank you. Get after it, everyone.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
All right. So we are stopped recording.